Hi everyone, welcome back. In this lesson, we are diving into one of the oldest and most influential approaches in leadership studies, trait theory. As you are building your expertise in leadership, from fundamentals to advanced mastery, you need to understand where leadership thinking began. Trait theory is one of those foundational perspectives, and even today, modern leadership models still carry its fingerprints. Let's explore it together in a practical and engaging way. What is trait theory? Trait theory is based on a simple but powerful idea. Leaders are born with certain inherent traits that make them effective leaders. In its earliest form, trait theory suggested that leadership ability is largely determined by personal characteristics, such as intelligence, confidence, courage, and charisma. In other words, instead of asking, "What do leaders do?" it asked, "What kind of person is a leader?" This distinction is critical. The historical roots. The Great Man era. Early versions of trait theory were closely related to what was called the Great Man theory. This theory assumed that leaders are extraordinary individuals. They possess unique qualities. Leadership cannot be learned. It is innate. Think about historical figures like Winston Churchill, Napoleon Bonaparte, Abraham Lincoln. Researchers asked, what traits did these individuals have that others did not? The assumption was, if we identify those traits, we can identify future leaders. Core traits identified by researchers. Over time, researchers began systematically studying leaders and identifying common traits. Some of the most frequently cited leadership traits include intelligence. Effective leaders tend to have above-average cognitive ability. Example, a CEO who can quickly analyze market changes and anticipate risks. Self-confidence. Leaders must believe in themselves before others believe in them. Example, a startup founder pitching to investors with conviction, even when the product is still in development. Determination. Persistence, drive, ambition. Example, a project manager who continues pushing the team forward despite repeated setbacks. Integrity. Honesty and strong moral principles. Example, a leader who admits mistakes publicly instead of blaming the team. Sociability. Strong interpersonal skills. Example, a department head who builds strong relationships across teams and resolves conflicts diplomatically. These traits may sound obvious, but remember, at the time, this was revolutionary thinking. Real-world example, two managers. Let's compare two managers. Manager A, highly intelligent, confident under pressure, communicates clearly, admits mistakes, inspires trust. Manager B, avoids responsibility, struggles with decision-making, blames others, lacks emotional control. According to trait theory, Manager A is more likely to succeed because they possess leadership traits. But here's where things get interesting. The strengths of trait theory. As future leadership experts, you should recognize why this theory became so popular. It shifted focus to the individual. It recognized that personality matters. It helped identify leadership potential. Organizations began using trait-based assessments in recruitment and promotion. It influenced modern tools. Many leadership development programs today use personality frameworks like Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, Good to Great by Jim Collins. These modern works still emphasize leader characteristics, just in a more nuanced way. The weaknesses of trait theory. Now, let's think critically. If leadership were purely about traits, why do some confident people fail as leaders? Why do introverted individuals sometimes lead extremely effectively? Why do people grow into leadership roles over time? Trait theory faced several criticisms. It ignored context. A trait that works in one situation may fail in another. For example, a highly dominant personality might succeed in crisis situations, but fail in collaborative environments. It ignored development. If leadership is purely innate, then training is useless, which we know is not true. It lacked a universal trait list. Different studies identified different traits. There was no single agreed-upon formula. Modern interpretation of trait theory. Today, we don't reject trait theory, we refine it. Modern research suggests traits influence leadership effectiveness, but traits alone are not enough. Situation, skills, emotional intelligence, and learning matter greatly. For example, a person may not naturally be charismatic, but through communication training and experience, they can become a compelling leader. As an instructor, and as someone who is building a comprehensive leadership course, you must communicate this balance. Leadership is influenced by who you are, but it is shaped by what you learn and practice. Practical reflection for you. Let's make this personal. Ask yourself, do I have strong self-confidence? Do I remain calm under pressure? Am I perceived as trustworthy? Do people naturally seek my guidance? If the answer is not yet, that's okay. Trait theory doesn't mean you're either born a leader or not. It simply tells us that certain characteristics make leadership more likely and more effective. And here is the empowering part. Many leadership-related traits can be developed. Confidence can be built. Communication can be trained. Emotional regulation can be strengthened. Integrity can be consciously practiced. Final thought for this lesson. Trait theory teaches us something fundamental. Leadership begins within. Before strategy, before vision, before execution, there is character. As you move forward in this course, from fundamentals to advanced leadership mastery, I want you to remember, traits may open the door to leadership, but growth keeps you in the room. Behavioral leadership theories. Up to this point in the course, we've talked about traits, vision, strategy, and mindset. But now we're going to shift our focus to something very concrete. Not who leaders are, but what leaders actually do. Behavioral leadership theories changed the conversation in leadership science. Instead of asking, are great leaders born? They asked, what behaviors make someone an effective leader? And this shift is incredibly empowering because behaviors can be learned. Let's dive deep. The core idea of behavioral theories. Behavioral theories emerged in the 1940s and 1950s as researchers started studying leaders in action. The key assumption was, leadership effectiveness depends on observable behaviors, not personality traits. In simple terms, traits equals who you are, behaviors equals what you do, and what you do can be improved. This is great news for all of us, because it means leadership is trainable. The Ohio State Studies, Task versus People. One of the most influential research projects came from Ohio State University. They identified two major dimensions of leadership behavior: initiating structure, task-oriented behavior. This is about setting clear goals, defining roles, creating processes, monitoring performance. Example, imagine you are managing a product launch. A task-oriented leader would set deadlines, assign responsibilities, define KPIs, track progress weekly. This leader says, here's the target, here's the timeline, let's execute. This style increases clarity and efficiency. Consideration, people-oriented behavior. This dimension focuses on building trust, showing empathy, supporting team members, listening actively. Example, same product launch scenario. A people-oriented leader would ask team members how they're feeling, offer flexibility if someone is overwhelmed, celebrate small wins, provide emotional encouragement. This leader says, I care about you, not just the result. The key insight. The best leaders are not exclusively task-focused or people-focused. They balance both. If you only focus on tasks, you may get results, but you lose loyalty. If you only focus on people, you may build great relationships, but miss deadlines. Leadership maturity means integrating both. The Michigan Studies, Production versus Employee Orientation. Around the same time, researchers at the University of Michigan conducted similar studies. They also identified two main styles: production-oriented leaders, employee-oriented leaders. Production-oriented leaders focus heavily on output, emphasize efficiency, use close supervision. Employee-oriented leaders prioritize relationships, encourage participation, show genuine concern. Example, imagine a customer service department. A production-oriented manager might say, we need 50 tickets closed per day. That's the priority. An employee-oriented manager might say, let's make sure our team isn't burning out while maintaining quality. Research showed something interesting. Employee-oriented leadership often led to higher productivity in the long run. Why? Because people perform better when they feel valued. Blake and Mouton's managerial grid. Now let's move to a more structured model, the managerial grid, developed by Robert R. Blake, Jane Mouton. They created a grid based on two axes: concern for production, concern for people. They identified 5 major leadership styles: impoverished leadership, low task, low people. This leader avoids responsibility. Example: no clear goals, no support, no involvement. Result: low performance and low morale. Authority compliance, high task, low people. Very results driven, very controlling. Example: just follow the instructions, no excuses. Short-term results? Yes. Long-term engagement? No. Country club leadership, low task, high people. Very friendly, avoids pressure. Example: let's keep everyone happy. The problem? Performance standards may drop. Middle of the road, moderate task, moderate people. Balanced but average, not bad, not exceptional. Team leadership, high task, high people. This is the ideal style: clear goals, high standards, strong relationships, mutual respect. Example: a leader says, "We are aiming high, and I believe in every one of you. Let's achieve this together." This style builds performance, commitment, ownership, long-term trust. Why behavioral theories matter for you? Let's make this personal. Behavioral theories tell us you don't need a specific personality type to lead. You need clear direction, emotional intelligence, consistent action. For example, you may be introverted. Does that mean you cannot lead? Absolutely not. You can set structured plans, show empathy in one-on-one conversations, build psychological safety, provide clear expectations. Leadership is about behavior, not charisma. Practical self-reflection exercise. Let me ask you, when under stress, do you over-control tasks or over-focus on pleasing people? Many leaders swing to extremes under pressure. A great leadership habit is this question: am I balancing performance and people right now? For example, if your team misses a deadline, instead of shouting, "Why did you fail?" try, "What blocked us? How can we improve the system?" That's behavioral leadership in action. Limitations of behavioral theories. As much as I love these models, they are not perfect. Behavioral theories assume there is a best behavior style, but reality is more complex. Different situations require different behaviors. This led to the development of situational and contingency theories, which we will explore later in the course. But behavioral theories gave us the foundation. They showed that leadership can be developed, leadership can be observed, leadership can be improved. Final takeaway. My dear friends, behavioral leadership theories teach us something powerful. Leadership is not magic. It is not destiny. It is not genetics. It is daily behavior. Every meeting you run, every feedback you give, every decision you make, every conversation you have, you are practicing leadership behaviors. And the beautiful part? You can consciously design them. In this lesson, we are diving into one of the most practical and realistic leadership theories ever developed: contingency theory. If you remember from our previous modules in leadership, from fundamentals to advanced leadership mastery, we discussed trait theories, leaders are born, and behavioral theories, leaders are made. Now, contingency theory adds something very powerful. It depends. Yes, leadership effectiveness depends on the situation. Let's break this down together. What is contingency theory? Contingency theory argues that there is no single best leadership style. The most effective leadership style depends on the situation. In other words, a leadership approach that works perfectly in one context may completely fail in another. Imagine using the same leadership style in a military operation, in a creative design agency, in a hospital emergency room, in a tech startup. Would one single style work everywhere? Of course not. That's exactly what contingency theory explains. The origin: Fred Fiedler's contribution. The most influential version of contingency theory was developed by Fred Fiedler in the 1960s. Fiedler proposed that leadership effectiveness depends on the match between the leader's style, the situation's favorableness. He believed something important. Leaders have relatively fixed styles. Instead of changing the leader, change the situation, or place the leader in the right context. That's a very different idea compared to other theories that say leaders should always adapt. Fiedler's two leadership styles. Fiedler identified two main styles: task-oriented leaders, focus on performance, focus on structure, care deeply about goals and results. Example: a factory manager during a production crisis who says, "Forget everything else, we must hit today's output target." Relationship-oriented leaders, focus on team harmony, focus on trust, care about emotional climate. Example: a team leader who says, "Before we continue, I can sense tension in the team. Let's talk." Neither is better. Effectiveness depends on context. Understanding the situation. Fiedler described three situational factors that determine how favorable a situation is. Leader-member relations. Do team members trust and respect the leader? High trust equals favorable. Low trust equals unfavorable. Example: if your team trusts you deeply, your leadership becomes more powerful. Task structure. Is the task clear and structured? Clear task, like assembling a product, equals structured. Creative task, like branding strategy, equals unstructured. Example: a construction project has clear steps. A product innovation workshop does not. Position power. Does the leader have formal authority? Can they reward? Can they punish? Can they hire, fire? Example: a CEO has strong position power. A project coordinator may not. The core insight of contingency theory. Fiedler's findings were fascinating. Task-oriented leaders perform best in very favorable situations, very unfavorable situations. Relationship-oriented leaders perform best in moderately favorable situations. Let's make this practical. Real-world examples. Example 1. Factory crisis. Situation: tasks are clear. Leader has authority. Team respects the leader. This is a highly favorable situation. A task-oriented leader thrives here. Focus, follow procedure, deliver output. Efficiency increases. Example 2. Organizational chaos. Situation: low trust, confusion, weak structure. This is highly unfavorable. Surprisingly, task-oriented leadership also works well here because the team needs direction, they need clarity, they need structure. Example 3. Creative team with moderate trust. Situation: medium trust, creative tasks, some authority. This is moderately favorable. Here, a relationship-oriented leader performs better. Let's collaborate. I want everyone's input. Creativity increases because emotional safety increases. What makes contingency theory powerful? Contingency theory teaches us leadership is not about ego. Leadership is not about personality alone. Leadership is about fit. The wrong leader in the wrong situation can fail, even if they are talented. Think about sports. A coach perfect for a young developing team might fail with world-class superstars. Context changes everything. Strengths of contingency theory: realistic, practical, situation-aware, research-based. It explains why great leaders sometimes fail, average leaders sometimes succeed, because effectiveness equals style times situation. Limitations of contingency theory. As advanced learners, we must also think critically. Some limitations. It assumes leadership style is fixed. It's difficult to measure situations precisely. It may underestimate adaptability. In modern leadership, we often combine contingency theory with situational leadership models, which assume leaders can adapt more dynamically. What this means for you as a leader. Let me speak to you directly now. If you are managing a startup, leading a classroom, directing a department, running your own company, ask yourself, what is the structure of the task? How much authority do I really have? What is the level of trust in my team? Before choosing how to lead. Leadership maturity means diagnosing before acting. Reflection exercise. Think about your own experience. Have you ever been too soft in a crisis? Been too rigid in a creative project? That's a style situation mismatch. Contingency theory helps you avoid that mistake. Final takeaway. Contingency theory teaches us one of the most important leadership lessons. The best leadership style is not universal, it is contextual. As you grow into advanced leadership mastery, remember, leadership is not about who you are. Leadership is about how well you fit the moment. And great leaders, they understand the moment before they act. In this lesson, we are going to explore one of the most practical and powerful leadership frameworks you can ever use in real life, the situational leadership model. As you build your leadership, from fundamentals to advanced leadership mastery journey, this model will help you answer a critical question. How should I lead this specific person, in this specific situation, at this specific moment? Because here is the truth. There is no single best leadership style. Great leaders adapt. What is the situational leadership model? The situational leadership model was developed by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard in the late 1960s. It is based on a simple but powerful idea. Effective leadership depends on the readiness, or development level, of the follower. In other words, you don't lead everyone the same way. You lead based on their competence and commitment. This model introduces two key dimensions of leadership behavior. Task behavior, how much direction you give. Relationship behavior, how much support and encouragement you provide. By combining these two dimensions, we get 4 leadership styles. The 4 leadership styles. Let's break them down one by one, and I'll give you real-world examples so you can visualize them clearly. Directing, high task, low relationship. You give clear instructions, you define roles, you closely supervise. This style is used when the person is new or inexperienced. Example 1. New employee. Imagine you just hired a junior marketing assistant. It's their first week. They don't know your systems, your clients, or your expectations. If you say, just be creative and do your best, that's not leadership, that's confusion. Instead, you say, here is the campaign brief. Step 1. Analyze the previous campaign. Step 2. Create 3 headline options. Step 3. Send them to me by 4 p.m. You are being directive, and that's appropriate. Coaching, high task, high relationship. Here, you still give direction, but you also explain decisions and encourage questions. This style is used when the person has some competence, but low confidence or inconsistent performance. Example, a struggling sales representative. Let's say a sales rep understands the product but is not closing deals. Instead of saying, just follow the script, you say, I noticed you're losing clients at the objection stage. Let's review your last call. What do you think happened? You are guiding them while involving them. This style is very powerful in leadership because it builds both skill and motivation. Supporting, low task, high relationship. Now the person is competent but may lack confidence or motivation. You reduce direction, but increase emotional support. Example, experienced team member feeling burned out. Your senior developer knows the job very well. You don't need to explain how to code. But lately their motivation is low. You don't micromanage. Instead you say, I trust your technical skills. Is there something affecting your motivation? How can I support you? You listen more. You empower more. You give ownership. This is where leadership becomes deeply human. Delegating, low task, low relationship. The individual is both competent and committed. You step back. You give autonomy. Example, high-performing project manager. Your project manager has delivered 5 successful projects. They understand the company culture, expectations, and deadlines. You don't say, send me daily updates. Instead, you say, this is the goal. Let me know if you need resources. That's it. Trust replaces supervision. The 4 development levels. The model doesn't just focus on leadership styles. It also defines follower development levels. D1, low competence, high commitment, excited beginner. D2, some competence, low commitment, disillusioned learner. D3, high competence, variable commitment, capable but cautious. D4, high competence, high commitment, self-reliant achiever. The magic of situational leadership is matching. D1 to S1, directing. D2 to S2, coaching. D3 to S3, supporting. D4 to S4, delegating. But here's something very important. People are not D3 forever. They can be D4 in marketing and D1 in finance. Leadership is dynamic. Practical workplace scenarios. Let's make this more concrete. Scenario 1. Promoted team leader. You promote a top engineer to team leader. Technically, D4. Leadership skills, D1. If you delegate everything immediately, they may fail. Instead, you direct them in people management while trusting their technical decisions. Same person, different development levels. Scenario 2. New software implementation. Your whole team is experienced, but you introduce a brand new CRM system. Now they are all D1 again in that context. As a leader, you temporarily shift to S1 or S2. Leadership is situational, not ego-based. Common leadership mistakes. Let me warn you about 3 critical mistakes. Leading everyone the same way. Some leaders are always controlling. Some are always hands-off. Both are wrong. Flexibility is leadership maturity. Over-delegating too early. You think, they're smart, they'll figure it out. That's not empowerment. That's abandonment. Micromanaging high performers. You apply S1 to a D4 employee. Result? Frustration, loss of motivation, talent leaving your organization. Why this model is so powerful? This model is practical. It works in corporate leadership, education, parenting, coaching, military, startups, because it's based on human development. Leadership is not about control. Leadership is about diagnosing readiness. Ask yourself regularly, does this person have the skill? Does this person have the will? Your answer determines your style. Final reflection for you. As future advanced leaders, I want you to reflect. Which style do you naturally prefer? Are you comfortable giving direction? Are you comfortable letting go? Do you adjust based on the person or based on your personality? True leadership mastery begins when you stop asking, "What kind of leader am I?" and start asking, "What kind of leadership does this person need right now?" That shift changes everything. In this lesson, we are going to explore a very important topic, the strengths and limitations of classical leadership theories. If you truly want to become an advanced leader, you must not only know the theories, you must also understand where they work, where they fail, and why. Let's break this down together in a practical, honest, and realistic way. What do we mean by classical theories? When we say classical leadership theories, we usually refer to early approaches such as trait theory, behavioral theories, early contingency approaches. These theories try to answer a fundamental question: what makes a leader effective? Some focused on personality traits, some focused on behaviors, some tried to match style with situation. Now let's analyze them critically, as advanced thinkers. Strengths of classical leadership theories. They gave leadership scientific legitimacy. Before these theories, leadership was seen as something mystical, almost like destiny. Trait theorists said, let's identify measurable characteristics of leaders. For example, confidence, intelligence, determination, integrity. This was revolutionary at the time. Example, if a company wanted to promote a manager in the 1950s, they could assess leadership traits instead of relying purely on favoritism or seniority. So one major strength, they made leadership a subject of study and measurement. They created clear frameworks. Behavioral theories simplified leadership into understandable patterns like task-oriented behavior, people-oriented behavior. This gave organizations practical tools. Example, imagine you're managing a production team. If productivity drops, behavioral theory helps you ask, am I focusing too much on tasks? Am I ignoring team morale? This clarity is powerful. They are easy to teach and apply. One reason classical theories are still taught, including in this course, is because they are structured and simple. For beginners especially, these theories create a foundation, a common language, a starting point for reflection. For example, when we talk about leadership traits, students can immediately self-assess. Am I confident? Do I demonstrate integrity? Do I remain calm under pressure? This simplicity is a strength. They help in selection and training. Trait and behavioral theories are often used in leadership assessment centers, HR recruitment processes, performance evaluation systems. Example: a company designing a leadership development program might focus on building communication skills, decision-making ability, emotional stability. Even today, many leadership competency models are rooted in classical thinking. Limitations of classical leadership theories. Now comes the critical part. As future advanced leaders, you must see the blind spots. Trait theory oversimplifies leadership. Trait theory suggests certain people are born leaders. But think about this. Have you ever seen someone very intelligent and confident fail as a leader? Of course you have, because context matters, culture matters, team dynamics matter. Example: a highly confident CEO who succeeds in a fast-paced startup environment may completely fail in a bureaucratic government institution. Same traits, different result. So traits alone do not guarantee effectiveness. They ignore context and environment. Early classical theories did not sufficiently consider organizational culture, economic conditions, technology, global diversity. Example: a highly task-oriented leadership style might work perfectly in military environments, manufacturing plants, but the same style may damage creative agencies, research teams, innovation-driven startups. Leadership is not one size fits all. They assume stability. Many classical models were developed in relatively stable industrial environments, but today's world is digital, global, remote, rapidly changing. A rigid leadership style designed for 1950s factories cannot fully explain leadership in AI-driven organizations or global virtual teams. As a modern leader, you must be adaptive. They underestimate followers. Classical theories focus heavily on the leader, but leadership is relational. It involves followers, motivation, trust, shared meaning. Example: two leaders may use the same behavior, but if one has trust and emotional connection with the team, results will differ dramatically. Classical theories didn't deeply analyze this dynamic. They do not fully explain change leadership. Modern organizations require innovation, transformation, cultural change. Classical theories explain management behaviors well, but they struggle to explain visionary leadership, transformational impact, emotional inspiration. This gap led to modern theories like transformational leadership. A balanced perspective. Now here's what I want you to understand deeply. Classical theories are not wrong. They are incomplete. They are like learning arithmetic before calculus. You cannot skip them. They give you structure, language, foundations, analytical thinking. But if you stop there, your leadership growth will stop as well. A practical reflection exercise for you. Let's make this personal. Ask yourself, do I rely too much on personality traits when evaluating leaders? Do I believe one leadership style fits all situations? Do I adapt my approach depending on team maturity and context? Do I focus only on my behavior or also on relationships and influence? This is how theory becomes transformation. Final thought. As advanced leadership thinkers, your goal is not to memorize theories. Your goal is to understand their strengths, recognize their limitations, integrate them intelligently, adapt them to modern realities. Classical theories gave us the foundation, but mastery comes from critical thinking, and that is exactly what we are building together in this course.